All right, everyone. Welcome to Digital Conversations. I am your host, Billy Bateman. Today, I am joined by the original DJ Khalid Saleh. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing well, doing well. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, you could join us. Should be a really interesting conversation. Going to talk a lot about A/B testing and optimizing for conversion. One of my favorite topics. But before we get into that, will you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, I started professional life as a software developer. I figured, you can make some good money in it. It was either a doctor or software engineer. I tried actually med school for a semester, and I'm like, ugh,
Wow.
dead bodies are not my thing. So, go into software development, and I moved up the ranks up to the point I was a software architect working on large websites. So American Express, Motorola, GoToMeeting. And I saw one problem that they've consistently struggled with, which is they've spent millions of dollars on these sites.
Yeah.
They get a ton of visitors to their sites, but they don't have the conversions. People are simply not converting. So your average e-commerce website converts about 1% of its visitors into actual customers, which is horrendous. For every 10,000 people that come, you get 100 orders. You would hope that you get better. If you
Yep.
compare that to the offline stores, usually about 20-25% of the people walk in, if not even higher, depends on the type of store, are actually buying an item.
Yep.
So uh, I told my wife this makes sense, and she started actually our agency. And then 2 years later, I still remember I'm working with a client, and she walks into me and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, working on a problem with the JavaScript." She's like, "Why don't you just quit and join me?" And I'm like, "Really? Join you? I mean, that's what's supposed to be a side business, side hustle." Go figure. The rest is history. So we've started the company back in 2006, and for the first 8 months of having the company alive, we're doing conversion optimization. It was not even called conversion optimization. It was simply helping companies increase conversion rates. 8 months
Yep.
into it, the Eisenberg brothers called it conversion optimization. And we're like, oh, so that's what you call the thing that we do is conversion optimization. Over the years, we've worked with clients, large and small. The big clients are really nice because they pay good money. The
Yeah.
small clients are more interesting because they tend to be willing to adventure to be more adventurous, correct? And
Yeah.
we're like, hey, let's test this thing, and let's see how people actually react to this messaging or this design. So kind of an interesting mix between the two. Over the years, we've ran 22,000 A/B tests until now, which I think is more than any other company that does conversion optimization worldwide. So we're very proud of that. And the average was sort of interesting. So the average conversion optimization company has a success rate of about 12%, 15%. So for every 100 A/B tests that they run, about 12 of them or 15 of them will actually produce results. Hey,
Mhm.
I have a design over here that actually increases conversions. We're averaging close to 60% success rate. So we've smashed that number. But
Impressive.
it also came as a result of a lot of work, a lot of mistakes, a lot of painful mistakes, sleepless nights at times, up to the point where you're like, okay, so I think I've figured this one out, and then we can actually increase conversions. So
Amazing. So let me ask you this. You've run over 60,000 A/B tests.
22,000,
Oh,
22,000.
22,000. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Um, so what are your like main, anyone who's getting into testing, whether they're going to try to specialize it or they've just been given the responsibility of I own the website as part of being on the marketing team. What are like the three things you would say to anybody getting started? Like, here's what you need to be thinking about when you're creating an A/B test.
Sure. So I would start the very first element whenever you're doing any type of A/B testing is you want to think about there's endless number of things that you can test on a website. I can test headlines, I can test images, I can test user flow and how people are navigating around my website. But before you and people become trigger happy whenever they discover A/B testing, and they probably have read a case study here that says, oh, we've changed this color on a button and now our
Yeah.
conversions increased by 500%. People get excited. They come in and they say, oh, I can change colors on a button. I can change an image. I can change a headline. and they test it and they're like, nothing's happening. No increase in conversions, no decrease in conversions. This was useless. They're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, let's test maybe a different headline. Try it out. Nothing happens. Let's test different call to action. Nothing happens. Because these are surface level solutions, correct? You're trying something very surface and you probably get very surface results. The success for doing conversion optimization starts with quality research. And it's funny because we always talk about research and marketers always talk about research. It's just as much as like, everybody says customer first. And I tell marketers, I'm like, you hear, we say that so much to the point that it becomes meaningless. I was dropping my son to school today. And I have NPR playing, and there's this law office in Chicago where it says like we put clients first. I'm like, gosh, man, even the law office puts clients first. I don't even know what that means. They charge you less, or what does it mean to put clients first? Same thing with research. It gets a bad rap. And research has been the same research, by the way, that most marketers do nowadays, or salespeople, is the same research that was done 50, 60 years ago. It just asks you, so why do you buy the product? And when you ask people top of mind questions, you get top of mind answers. This is sort of interesting. Let me ask you this, Billy. Why do you brush your teeth every day?
So that my wife will hang out around me.
There you go. That's the right answer. Most people would say dental hygiene. It's not because of dental hygiene. It has actually very little to do with dental hygiene. If you want to apply logic to the answers, well, that's why people do it. If that was the case because of dental hygiene, then we all would be brushing our teeth probably 4 or 5 times a day, especially after we eat candy. Yet research shows that people don't brush their teeth after they eat a candy bar late at night. People are more likely to brush their teeth if they're about to go out on a date because they don't want to have that stinky breath.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing to do with dental hygiene. The top of mind answer is I want to keep my teeth healthy. The reality, there's a lot more that goes into human actions, more than humans would tell you why they take a certain action. So I think increasing conversion rates starts by doing that type of research, whether it's customer research, so sitting and talking to people, and we spend quite a bit of time talking to actual customers. I think they can, if you know what type of questions to ask, it can reveal tremendous amounts of insights that you can use. And it might be interesting, maybe a little later in the show that we'll do some live interview. So we'll see and drill a bit deeper. You want to look at data as well as part of the research. You want to look at your analytics. You want to see, okay, where are people clicking? How are they navigating from one page to the next? What pages are people exiting my site on? Where are people struggling, correct, on the site? That's something else. There's plenty of solutions out there, that's heat map solutions that show you actually for a page that has about 1,000 visitors, where are people clicking? What buttons are people clicking? I was just looking at a heat map for our site. So we have our own conversion optimization software. And when you first log in, smack dab in the middle of the dashboard, we have 4 icons: A/B testing, heat maps, session recording, opt-in forms. And I'm thinking, this occupies 95% of the design.
Mm-hmm.
And on the side, we have this small navigation that says the same things: A/B testing, heat maps, session recording, polls. People were ignoring those humongous icons that we have in the middle, and they were clicking on the small icons we have on the side. And I'm sitting with the team. I'm like, so you're telling me people are completely ignoring this major real estate that we have on the page, and they're clicking on the site navigation. Guess what? Remove those huge icons and let's figure something out with the design of the dashboard, because people are ignoring it, basically. People are telling you through their clicks. They're voting with their clicks, correct? People vote with money, and they vote with their wallets, and they vote with their clicks. Look at the elements that people are interested in. Ask people questions. So we have those pop-ups that appear, correct, on the side of, and you see them all the time. So why are you visiting our site today? People come to our website. My assumption was to hire a conversion optimization company. I'm like, okay, guys, we only have a 2% conversion rate. We got to do something about this. So before we do anything, we're like, let's ask people, why are you coming to our website? And let's see what people say. 95% of our visitors were coming to our site to learn about conversion optimization. They were not there to hire a conversion optimization agency. So I was sitting with the team and I was telling them, like, no matter what you do, 95% of your visitors are there to learn about conversion optimization. You're not going to improve conversion rates beyond 5% because 95% are not there they're there to learn, not to buy. And even more interesting to say is like, hey guys, so if we know that our audience is coming to learn about conversion optimization, what do we need to present them with on the homepage to tell them you're at the right place? We actually have quite a bit of educational material about conversion optimization. That's the kind of research that can really help educate you and to make the right decisions, correct? So as you go through this process of doing customer research, looking at your data, looking at session replays, looking at analytics, doing the surveys on the website, you end up identifying problems. You can give me probably a site and we can easily identify 30, 40, 50, sometimes 150 problems on the website.
Yep.
If you have unlimited time and unlimited budget, have at it, fix them all. Now, as far as I know, most of us are not in that amazing situation. So most of us have, like, limited time, limited resources. So what we say is like, hey, let's figure out from those 150 problems, which ones we think will have the most impact on our bottom line. And at the same time, it would require the least amount of effort in terms of fixing. You might show me a problem. I'm like, oh, great, I can fix it. But it'll take me 6 months to fix. And lots of resources. And I'm like, I don't have the time or the energy to do that. Let's find the things that we think will have the most impact and will require the least amount of effort. Those are the ones that I tackle first. So research helps us identify the problems, and then a little bit of intellectual exercise to identify which ones will have the most impact on our bottom line. That's the first element to successful A/B testing. The second element to successful A/B testing kind of goes with the first one as well, which is being able to run quality testing. And by quality testing, so I've identified the elements. I say to myself, there's a problem on the page. And lots of times when people say, well, yeah, I see a problem, but the least effort will be into changing the color of the button. And I'm like, so you really think by changing the color of the button, and this was, by the way, a debate between green to red, you actually think you're going to actually get a lot more sales? And people say, yes. I'm like, really? I'm like, let's take a look at the web. And I love to do this. I'm like, take a look at my website. So they navigate around it. And then I close it and I tell them, hey, by the way, what color was my button? They're like, I don't remember. I'm like, yes, most likely you don't remember the color of the button. Guess what? When you're motivated enough, you will find that button. Now, don't do something silly like hiding the button or like chasing it, like people can't find it. But at the same time, make it very simple, very straightforward. Quality testing means that I need really to think about the test and think about the human mind.
Yeah.
If you're thinking that changing colors will impact, no, but maybe changing the messaging around the website. And then you want to come up, for example, with messaging where your visitor will think to themselves, oh man, it is stupid of me not to buy from this site today. Now, how often does that happen? Where you see something and you think to yourself, I gotta have this today. Lots of times people come in, look at the sites and like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's another website, bookmark it, and then they never remember to come back to it.
Yeah.
How do you change that where somebody sees your website and they're like, oh, I gotta have this, I gotta contact them, oh, I gotta subscribe, oh, I gotta place an order? There's a big difference in the mindset of a visitor who thinks to themselves, I can buy from this website, versus the visitor who thinks to themselves, I must buy from this website.
So let me ask you, because I think a lot of it comes down to emotion. If you can trigger some type of emotion in people, even if you're selling like a B2B product, but being able to trigger emotion, not an easy thing to do, but when done well, it's going to make a world of difference to your sales and your marketing. So what do you see as like the quality things? Like, how do you get to that state where you're like, I got to buy?
So I completely agree with you, Billy. It's all about figuring out the emotion, correct? Kind of peeling the onion. So the Japanese always say, ask the 5 whys, correct? Why, until you get to the real reason why somebody wants to buy something. A little tough if you're doing a customer interview and you're asking them why, because the person is going to get really annoyed.
Yep.
I like to give the example of buying a drill. Every marketer knows the famous saying by Professor Levitz: "No one buys a quarter-inch drill; everybody buys a quarter-inch hole."
Yep.
The benefits of of buying the drill. So we moved to this house in Chicago. We have a whole bunch of art that we want to hang on the wall, paintings
Yeah.
and whatnot. And my wife just is constantly bugging me. And she's like, "When are you gonna hang it on the wall? When are you gonna?" It's like almost every other weekend. It's like, I'm like, "Dude, it's freezing outside. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to hang it."
Yeah.
Eventually, I invite my friends over, so I'm like, "Okay, gotta go buy the drill," because begs the question why I don't have a drill. Long story, I don't have a drill. So I go to Home Depot, I buy the drill, and like pick the fanciest drill, and I'm walking outside of Home Depot, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, so I did buy the drill. I did buy that hole that I'm going to put in the wall to hang the pictures. But the reality of it, I bought two other things. One, I bought the piece at the house where my wife is going to stop nagging me completely.
Yep.
And there's no this weekly questioning and inquisition in front of my kids. When are you going to hang the wall, the art on the wall?
And that's priceless.
Oh my God, definitely. Something else I bought though. I actually, because my friends were coming over, I really wanted to show all this art that we bought, and there was a social element to my decision.
Yep.
There's always a functional aspect to every decision that we make. Well, you bought the drill, done. But then there's the emotional and the social side of things. I was thinking to myself, like, me and my wife, because we lived overseas and then we moved over here, so we had one car, and I'm like, this will do. And I've been thinking about buying a car. I start thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go buy a car. And I start thinking, I'm like, a Camry will do. Actually, I'm point A to point B, and it's funny because of COVID, our car's been parked there for months.
Yeah.
Rarely do we move it. So I start thinking to myself, like, look at this, kind of the functional aspect. I need a car that takes me from point A to point B. Here's the budget. That's what I'm thinking. But then I start thinking, but come on, I'm the CEO of a company. I can't just buy a Camry. I've been working really hard. I must buy myself something a little bit nicer. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm gonna go with an SUV. I'm somebody who loves SUVs, so I'm like, okay, I need an SUV. And then I start thinking, I'm like, well, SUV always since college days, every time you buy a car, it's an SUV. And the Camry, no, it's out of question. If I'm looking at functionality, it would have been a Camry. SUV, I'm like, no, and we already have another SUV. So I'm like, I need something to show off in front of my peers. I'm like, okay, a Lexus. I need to get me a Lexus. Watch that emotional element, correct, and the mindset from purely functional. And in all honesty, if I wanted just something purely functional, Central would have done. Not to offend anybody who drives a Central, but that's the functionality. But then there's other considerations, and it's funny because people always, whenever you start thinking about buying something, you put a criteria in your mind, and it's all based on functionality. But when you make a decision, correct, that criteria, almost most of it goes out the door, and it's the emotional side of things, correct?
For sure.
And that changes you, and that doesn't matter whether it's B2B or B2C. There's always an emotional side. Drilling a bit deeper and being able to collect those emotions and using them in the sales process and the marketing material makes a huge difference in your ability to convert somebody.
I agree.
There you go.
Oh, hey, man. So let me ask you this. So we started out talking a lot about customer research, and really throughout the whole thing, it's like, how do you understand your customers and why they made that decision to sign up, so that you can help more people make that decision.
Exactly.
When you're doing customer research, you shared with me that you've got a great exercise you like to go through.
Yes.
I think it would be awesome to go through that, and we can learn. How do you do it?
Awesome. So you bought something recently?
Yeah. I recently bought a rooftop tent that goes on top of my 4Runner.
Nice.
So when we go camping, my wife didn't grow up camping. I grew up, actually spent 7 summers in high school and college living in a tent and working in the outdoors. But she doesn't like to sleep on the ground. And I don't like setting up tents that much either. This is easy. It's like 5 minutes, the whole thing's set up and she's happy.
Awesome. Let's do an interview. When did you buy it? This rooftop?
I bought it last fall.
Okay, last fall. So usually, by the way, whenever we're doing interviews, we ask couple of things. One, we want to talk to customers who bought within the last, we say, a month to 6 months. So that's
Okay.
number one.
Yep.
If somebody had bought something over a year, they forgot the emotions. You can still bring back the emotions, but it's a bit harder.
Yeah.
That's number one. We want to make sure that they bought the item themselves. They didn't receive it as a gift, because if you received the item as a gift, well, you're not as invested.
Yep.
And usually the items that are really good to do interviews for are items where you spend more than $50, which I assume you did.
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
There you go. There you go. So here's how I would start an interview. Let's say, the manufacturer or e-commerce website that sells those rooftop tents hired
Okay.
us, uh, and they selected you for the interview. Hey, Billy, thank you for for agreeing to do the interview. Let me give you a little bit of background. So we are going to be conducting a much larger research project about how people buy roof tents. And due to COVID, this project is probably going to happen sometime either later this year or next year.
Hmm.
Until then, we decided to talk to customers who have purchased the rooftop tent and actually just hear your story. There are no right or wrong answers. It's your story, what
Yeah.
you're going through. The best example that I can give, think of me shooting a documentary. You're the star of that documentary. I'm the director. At some moments, we will have the cameraman standing behind my shoulder, zooming in on your face, just like how you see it in documentaries, asking you some silly questions. It's a bit different, but it should be interesting. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Excellent. So when did you buy that roof tent?
So we got it last September.
You got it last September. Perfect. So what was going on that day? Where did you buy it from, by the way?
Yeah, so we actually bought a used one. Just went online, found somebody selling them used. We were trying to get a new one, but due to COVID, finding a new one is tough.
Okay.
Uh,
I like that. So what was the motivation behind, why did you think that day, I'm gonna go ahead and buy me the scent? Kind of walk me through that. What were you thinking?
yeah, so it was probably about a month leading up to it. I'd actually been interested in buying one back when I was in grad school
No.
because when I first started grad school, I did not have a place to live. I
Oh,
was living out of my Forerunner
wow.
for about a month until I found a place to live. And at the time, my wife, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, was like, hey, she found these. She's like, you should get one of these, it'd be more comfortable. But I was like, no, I got to spend all this money on tuition. I can't afford $1,200 for a tent
Yeah.
right now because I'm going to get a place to live. Like, it's not a long-term solution. I can't spend the winter in Boise living in a tent. Um, and then kind of forgot about it for a couple of years. And my wife and I, we do a lot of camping, although we weren't doing as much as I wanted to because she doesn't like sleeping on the ground.
Okay.
Um, and so then I was reminded of, oh, we got these rooftop tents. I saw somebody driving around that had one, and I was like, okay, let's look at it and see if maybe I can find something within $1,000 or less
So you set
that
up
would be good.
$1,000. You're seeing
Yep.
somebody. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, and then we just started looking around and watching YouTube videos of the different models, seeing what would fit on my Forerunner. Tried to find videos of other people that had the same tent on the similar Forerunner model that I had, and found a couple of videos actually with the one we ended up buying with people with the same car and
Okay.
talking about how, hey, this one will work. This is what we like. This is what we don't like. The things they didn't like weren't a huge deal, but I actually dislike the same things now after using the tent a few times. But yeah, and then we couldn't find one new that wasn't. They were just. I felt like they were price gouging.
Yeah, of
You
course.
know,
Like everybody's suffering through that.
yeah. It was like this thing was $900 the beginning of the year, and now people want $1,400 for it. I was like, okay, we'll look around. We found one used for $750, I believe, was what we ended up paying. It's like a couple years old, but no problems with it. And
So
once we found one, just called them up and got it.
let me ask you this question. So you're thinking about using it because you guys go camping. How
Yep.
often do you guys go camping? Talk to me about that.
In the summer, twice a month at least on the
Twice a
weekends.
month.
Yep.
And who's more into camping, you or your wife?
Oh, me for sure.
You, when was the last time you guys, before buying this rooftop tent? When was the last time you guys, like, how far before then that you guys had gone camping?
Um, probably probably a month before we bought it, we'd gone and done like a legit camp out where we set up a tent.
Okay,
Um,
so it
but
was you and your wife. Anybody else, or just the two of you?
no, my brother and his wife came as well.
Nice, nice. Documentary style. We're gonna zoom in. A month before. So we're talking about the August time frame, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. It was a weekend, I'm assuming.
yeah. Just quick, went down, camped out Friday and Saturday nights
Okay.
after work.
Do you recall? Let's talk about when how far in advance do you guys usually plan those camping?
It all depends. Sometimes we'll plan it months in advance, and other times we'll just be like talking Wednesday or Thursday, and like, hey, we don't have anything for the weekend. Let's go down to Boulder and camp, or go up
Nice.
here.
So
So
for this particular camping trip, the last one, uh,
yep.
do you recall who initiated that conversation? You or your brother?
I think my brother did. Yeah, Jacob, him and his wife were already planning to go, and they just called. He called me and was like, "Hey, Melody and I are going. You guys want to come?"
Awesome. And do you recall if how many days in advance he called you?
Oh, it was 3 or 4. It
He
was like
called
Tuesday.
Tuesday. He calls you a Tuesday morning or night. Do you recall?
Probably Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning. Where are you? At home, I'm assuming, or you're at work, or tell me.
I think I was on the way to work.
You're on the way to work.
Well,
He calls you up, and let's you're on your so you're in your car, maybe, going to work.
yeah.
Okay, so you're on your way. Uh, Jacob calls you. Hey, and where was he planning to go, by the way? Like
We
where?
went down to it's Boulder, Utah, little
Okay,
place, middle of nowhere.
middle of nowhere. Have you been there before?
Yeah, we go all the time.
Okay, calls you. We're gonna do this. And did you tell him yes, or do you usually check with your wife, by the way?
I usually check with my wife at this point.
Wise man, wise man. We eventually learn. So okay, so you're gonna. What do you tell him? When he tells you, "Hey, we're going down."
Yeah, I was like, dude, as long as Chelsea doesn't have something planned that I don't know about, we're in.
Okay, awesome. Um, Walk me again, documentary style. When do you call your wife?
I think I probably texted her.
Oh, okay. So
No,
you opted for the text route. Okay.
yeah, I probably well, she works as well, and she gets to the office a little before me. But yeah, texted her and just said, hey, they're going down. You want to go? And she was like, yeah, we'll go.
Awesome, awesome. So this is Tuesday. When do you guys head down? What,
Friday after work. Just
Friday after work. Now you said that she's like your wife, Chelsea, correct?
yep.
Okay. She likes to sleep on the ground.
She does not like to
Oh,
sleep on the ground.
she does not like to sleep on the ground. Okay,
Yep.
so you must have been aware of that because you've gone camping before.
Yeah.
What are you thinking as you're heading down there? How long is the drive, by the way?
It's a 2.5 hour drive.
Not
Yeah, not too bad. We got a bunch of the inflatable pads, and I have some foam pads. So we brought all that stuff.
oh,
So like she's all right. I think it's the bugs that bug her more than anything.
okay. So let's talk about that Friday night. Finally, you're settled. You get there. What are you guys sleeping on, by the way? At that point, is that the inflatable?
Yeah, we're sleeping on. We each have an inflatable pad.
Okay,
Just in a little tent.
in a little tent, and you're okay with it. You've done it
Yeah.
several times. Did she complain about it?
No, she doesn't complain really. On the way back, she did let me know, like, man, I love to camp, but we had camped next to people that had a nice camper trailer, and
Ah,
she's like, that would be really nice, and I'm just like, I do not want to buy a camper trailer. As much as I do, I don't. It's a whole lifestyle commitment.
oh, definitely. So that she's telling, hey, I love it, but you gotta make some upgrades.
Nicely, yes.
In a nice way. So she suggests that. Um, and then at some point you said you saw somebody with that
Yeah. I
to-
did just driving around town the next week.
Okay, talk to me about that. What day was it, by the way? Was just like just a regular work day or weekend?
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember. I think it was just during the week.
Okay. Were you?
Driving.
Was she with you in the car?
I don't think so. I think it was
Okay.
just me heading to work and saw somebody coming the other way that had one, and I was like, okay, that's a cheaper option than getting a camper.
Okay. And do you tell your wife about it at that point, or you go research?
I think when I went home, I did tell her about it,
Okay.
and so then we started, to see what she would think, and then she was like, "Yeah, I think it would be fun,"
Okay.
and we started both researching at that point.
Okay. Now you're researching online. Are you like tell me what as you're doing this research? Like it sounds like YouTube, Google. What are you doing to research?
Yeah, YouTube and Google for the most part. I tried to think if I knew any of my friends that had one of these, and none of them, none of even a few people I called them like I think Adam might have one, didn't. But asked them if they'd stayed in some, and a few of them had slept in them. Not they didn't own one, but they'd slept in one, and they gave me their feedback on it. And
How was it? What did they tell you?
they all liked it. They did have some feedback along the lines of the mattresses that come in those things are not always as comfortable as you think they're going to be. So having a pad or just making sure the mattress is really thick um, is something you should definitely look at.
Okay. Okay.
But they all liked it. The only complaint other than that was something that I became acquainted with really quickly is if it's really windy and you're up high, you hear that wind on your
Oh
tent.
yeah. Oh yeah. I can imagine. I can imagine. So you've done the research. It sounds like okay, we're gonna do this. Uh,
Yeah.
did you was what budget did you set for yourself at that point?
About $1,000. We were like, let's try to keep it under $1,000.
Did you have any point of reference to set that thousand or no?
Yeah, we looked at pricing on a few and just kind of figured, okay, it's not the cheapest, but we're not ready to spend more than that for
Okay.
something that we're not convinced we're gonna like.
Okay. Okay. So 1,000, and we're gonna try it out and see. Now you're looking for a new one, and what kind
Yeah.
of prices did you start seeing?
Uh, the prices were mostly over 1,000 on the new ones.
Okay.
Even for ones that I'd known from just seeing prices in the past were typically less than that. And then watching YouTube videos that were a year or two old, and they're like, "Yep, I bought this for this price." I'm like, "Oh, that's a good price."
Yeah.
I go to try to find it at that price. I'm like, "Yeah, that price is not being offered anymore."
Yeah. Go figure. Everybody wants to buy them, and
Yep.
they're trying to make. Okay. So who suggested the used option, by the way?
Uh, I think my wife did. I don't remember exactly, but she said, let's check KSL, which is like the local version of Craigslist.
Okay.
Uh, and we started looking, and there's not a lot on there, but there were a few. And so I would just check it every day and see what was up.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Let's stop the interview over here because we can
Yeah.
continue, by the way, and drill. Notice how I didn't ask you a lot about your experience post using the item, correct? We're
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah. Yeah.
go a bit deeper. Notice how, and this is sort of very, very interesting because the idea first came to you in grad school, but you didn't entertain it. But it's still kind of the seed there in the back of your head.
Yeah.
The driver for you is there's an activity that you enjoy, but your wife is with you during the activity, correct?
All the time. Yep.
Exactly. And guess what? She lets you know, it's like, hey, instead of telling you I'm not gonna do it, that camper is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is like, if you want to do this anymore, honey, we gotta upgrade. We gotta have a major upgrade. And notice how, the minute you saw something else triggered, right away, it's like, oh, this is a much better option. If I'm running marketing, these are things that I would play, with correct the messaging about the
Yeah.
wife, the happy wife or the happy partner. I would play a lot with the messaging around because you don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars to enjoy your camping trip, correct? And I'll put
Yeah.
play with something with the image of the camper that's going to cost and play more on the benefits of the item. If I'm running that classified ads, site, it's correct, but let's say you're running the marketing for it. What's the messaging going to be? You come to our
Yeah.
site because of all the price gouging.
Yeah.
Lots of times, if you think about all these different things, think about even the rooftop tent that you bought. Most likely, if you see it, it's just kind of the features, correct? Here's the specs, here's the size, nothing emotional, nothing about the
For
part
sure.
that's upset, nothing about the comfort of the camping trip, nothing about the fact that you'll enjoy your camping trip without having to spend $1,000. So here's the size, here's the material. And then notice how, again, we were going back and we're doing that. We did this, I think, in about 10, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
We spent 45 minutes going through each one of those. Now, something else that we did, Billy, is the documentary style. And the reason for the documentary style, and I was asking what day was it and how, and if we had drilled a bit deeper, it's about bringing you back to that emotional state that you were in.
Okay.
How you felt, how your brother called you. Oh, I texted my wife. Oh, I got something back from her. Does she complain? No, but on the way back, again, it's about bringing you back to that emotional state.
Yeah.
And as you do those interviews, you will see when somebody, something clicked in their head and it's like they're back into that emotion, correct? And it's like, now they're speaking more emotionally as opposed to very logical. Well, yeah, we need just something to cover, to cover ourselves and feel more comfortable. That's the style, of customer research. And notice, just from spending 12 minutes, we figured out different messaging for that product, a lot better, I'm almost sure, than what they use on the site, and in their marketing material.
Yeah, I love it, man. This has been really good. I think it was great. You brought me right back to the moment, even though it was a few months ago. I was like, okay, I remember this whole kind of journey. And if anyone can have that information this is why I bought. Dude, that's gold if you're the marketing team. If you're like, okay, and it's not just this guy. We heard similar things from Carrie. We heard similar things from Jenny. These are the things we're seeing for why people actually buy our products.
Exactly. So usually what we do, and it's sort of interesting, you bring up a really interesting point. So we'll do about 5 to 7 of those interviews.
Yeah.
And you start seeing trends. People don't buy something because they're a 40-year-old male sitting, somewhere. People buy because there is a certain emotion. So you'll find that there are some people who are buying because of their wife, by the way. That's the job, satisfying the wife. Somebody else is buying it because he has some friends and he wants to show off. You start almost categorizing them that there is something specific, a job that you're hiring this product to do. You're like, oh, now we've heard the same story. Let me mention this story, which is funny. We work with a client that sells dance lessons, and he always thought that he sells dance lessons. So you go to YouTube and you download those dance lessons. So we start interviewing people, and we talked to a pastor who had bought the dance lessons, and he tells us, "You don't sell dance lessons." I'm like, "We don't." He's like, "No." He's like, "What you sell is marriage therapy." I almost got a divorce from my wife until I bought the dance lessons, and we started practicing dancing together. And he's like, as a matter of fact, it was so powerful that his last Sunday, the sermon that he gave on Sunday in the church was about the dance lessons and about that dance lesson program. I'm like, really? He's like, not only really, I actually recorded it, and he sends us the recording. I'm like, wow, okay, so we're selling something else. There's that emotional benefit, drilling a bit deeper, and then actually listening to the customer, allowing them the space to be able to say, actually, we're having problems with the marriage. Things were stagnant, and it changed our life. I'm like, okay, we sell something different. So sell the benefits, sell the emotions, because people make decisions based on emotions, and they justify with their mind, with logic.
Yep, I love it, man. I love it. This has been enlightening. Thank you so much. Before I let you go, is there anything else you wanna talk about?
I think we've covered quite a bit. I'm
Yeah.
active on LinkedIn. I hang out at LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to connect, just hit me up. And I hope that everyone found it useful.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, and we'll chat later.
Awesome. Thank you.